Saab. If you ask anyone what Saab was, chances are they wouldn't know much, or anything. Back in the day, Saab was one of the few brands that actually cared. They made fun cars for enthusiasts, quirky and reliable sedans, and wagons that were both practical and interesting. Saab took risks, and for a while, they were actually the perfect car brand. Now, they're pretty much forgotten, so you might be wondering, why did Saab fail? That's what we're breaking down in today's video, from their early roots to their success to where it all went catastrophically wrong. We've got a lot to cover, so let's jump right in. Saab started building cars in 1949 with the 9.2. It was front-wheel drive, aerodynamic, and efficient, not because it was trendy at the time, but because Saab engineers were used to designing planes, not cars. Everything they did was function first. The 9.2 had a two-cylinder, two-stroke engine, and it looked like nothing else on the road. It wasn't fast, but it worked. By the time the Saab 9.6 came around in 1960, they evolved the formula. More power, a better chassis, and a tight, compact footprint. Overall, the 9.6 is quirky, and every time I think of Saab, I think of stuff like this. Strange, but somehow cool. Soon, rally drivers noticed the brand. The 9.6 became a competitive rally car, and that says a lot about the engineering. Also, when they competed in rally, it pushed them to create better cars and engineer more. All of this eventually made it to consumer models. This is why I feel like more car brands should be involved in motorsports. It pushes them to think outside the box, which in turn makes their original lineup better. Then, in the late 60s came the Saab 9.9. This was a big step forward. A more modern body, better handling, and this is where Saab started to carve out its real identity. In 1978, the 9.9 Turbo dropped, and this is where Saab went from interesting to legitimately cool. They were one of the first companies to put a turbo in a mass-market production car, and not for top speed or bragging rights, but for usable torque. It made daily driving better. This is when Saab started getting respect from people who actually cared about how a car felt to drive. The 9.9 Turbo led straight into the 900, which is the most iconic Saab ever made, especially the first-gen 900 Turbo. The long hood, the wraparound windshield, the rear seats with tons of legroom, and the signature floor-mounted ignition. It all looked ugly, but every part of the car was different in a way that actually made sense. The curved dashboard and the center-mounted info panel made it feel focused. The turbo spooled hard, and with the manual transmission, it felt alive. It didn't try to be a BMW or a Mercedes, and that's why people who drove them stayed loyal. In the 50s, Saab released the Saab Sonnet, a small two-seat sports car that ran from the early 60s to the mid-70s. It was quirky in every sense, fiberglass body, tiny size, and a design that looked almost like a toy. It wasn't a big seller or popular, but it showed Saab wasn't afraid to experiment. The Sonnet looks really cool, and it's one of my favorite Saabs. Even though the Sonnet never became mainstream and is now forgotten, it remains a cult classic and a symbol of Saab's fearless approach to engineering. Then came the Saab 9000, not as popular but easily one of Saab's most underrated cars. It shared a platform with Fiat, Alfa, and Lancia, but Saab reworked it completely. The 9000 Aero was the highlight. It had a 2.3 turbocharged inline-4, making 225 horsepower and 258 pounds-foot of torque, and it pulled hard. Mid-range torque hit fast, and with the 5-speed manual, it was quick. A real sleeper. It was more than just fast. It was stable, smooth, and solid on the highway. It felt like it was built for more serious driving. Inside, it had the classic Saab layout, the driver-focused dash, and the center-mounted ignition, and some of the best seats ever put in a car. Cargo space was huge thanks to the hatchback design, and the car was practical without feeling boring. And in 1993, Saab dropped the 9000 wagon, the CSE longroof, and it was awesome. You got the same turbocharged 2.3-liter engine from the Aero, and the same rock-solid chassis, and the sleeper vibe, just all in a wagon. It came with a manual, had real power, and still hauled like a proper performance car. It was fast and actually useful, not bloated and not fake like modern crossovers. This is exactly the kind of wagon we need back today. It wasn't trying to be something it wasn't, it just did everything right. Sleek, subtle, punchy, and rare, especially in the US where no one talks about it. It's one of those hidden gems and proves that wagons can still be cool as hell. If anything, it just shows how badly the car world needs a wagon comeback, and Saab was way ahead on the curve on that. In the late 90s, things started to slip. GM came in and bought a 50% stake in Saab in 1989 and took full control by 2000. That's when changes really started showing. The second gen 900 and later the 93 were built on GM platforms. You could feel it. The chassis got softer, the quirks started disappearing, and the engines were still turbocharged, but some trims were genuinely fast, but overall, the cars felt less Saab and more of rebadged Opel. The 9.5 launched in 1997 and was supposed to be their luxury model. Early ones were solid, especially the Aero. It had 250 horsepower, lots of torque, and still had that Saab handling feel. But quality started slipping. Those late 90s GM parts started creeping in. They even built the 97X, which was literally a Chevy Trailblazer with the Saab badge on it. That said everything about where the brand was headed. By 2010, Saab tried to make a comeback with a new 9.5. It looked great, had strong performance, and finally felt like Saab was finding its voice again, but it was too late. GM sold the company to Spyker, who didn't even have the money to keep it going. Production stopped in 2012. That was it. Saab didn't die because people stopped caring. It died because GM didn't understand what made Saab special. They stripped out the engineering weirdness, the unique features, and the things that made the cars worth buying in the first place. They turned it into just another brand, and when that didn't sell, they just gave up. So this is how Saab fell, and it was slow and tragic. Saab didn't deserve to die. They pushed limits and ventured into areas no other brand would even touch. When I look at any Saab from before the late 2000s, I realize they had personality, real character. They were built with purpose, bold engineering, and quirks you don't see in cars today. Sure, modern cars have quirks, usually giant touchscreens, the ability to play games, or cars with 48 cup holders. But Saab's quirks actually gave the car personality. Don't believe me? Which car's quirkier? A BMW with a light leather touchscreen-filled dash, or a Saab with AC controls that look like they're from an airplane, a simple but fun interior, and ugly but interesting rims? The Saab is obviously more fun, and that's what made them special in the first place. That's what automakers need to learn from Saab. Cars need to be unique and have special features that actually benefit the driver, not having to open the glove box or a touchscreen. Today, Saab is unfortunately long gone, and to most people, they might have never existed. You barely see them anymore, and if you do, it's usually some beat-up 9.3 with mismatched panels and an owner who probably doesn't even know what they have. The cool ones, the classic 900 turbos, the 9000 Aeros, or the oddball wagons, they're either rotting away in barns or held onto by the few diehards who actually care. And honestly, they're too rare now to be in anyone's hands. Saabs were never meant to be mass market machines. They were built with a different kind of thinking for a different kind of driver. And when you lose a brand like that, you don't just lose a car company. You lose a piece of automotive identity. Saab stood for something, and now it's just another forgotten name in the pile of brands killed off by corporate mismanagement. And unfortunately, the real reason Saab didn't sell, the reason they had no shot in today's market, is because most people just aren't interested in cars like Saab anymore. They don't want thoughtful design or quirky engineering. They want screens, gimmicks, and soulless crossovers. That's why Saab isn't coming back. There's no room left for a brand like that. Saab didn't fade away because it wasn't good, it faded because the world stopped caring about what made it great. What do you think? Was Saab just another failed brand, or is it something more that modern cars could learn from today? I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember people, drive safe, drive smart, but most importantly, drive something worth talking about. See you in the next one.